We're fortunate enough to have a little time to sit down with Father Danny Garcia, founding pastor of St. Vincent de Paul Church in Austin, Texas, before he transitions to his new role with the Austin Diocese as its Vicar General and Moderator of the Curia. Thank you for talking with us, Father Danny.
You're welcome.
How did you find your calling to the priesthood?
Oh, I don't think it was one of the simple kind of voice or calling, like perhaps nice stories or being told of how I always wanted to be a priest and those kind of things. I think a little mine was a little bit more complex. From the perspective of, although always raised close to the church, always been close to the church as a child through my parents and grandparents, the presence of priesthood, priests in our family was always something very dear to us. We were always very close to the priests of our parishes that we belonged to. And as I got older in high school, there was certainly some of those probably moments when the priests hinted at, maybe not so directly, but about vocation. And I probably, like any other teenager, shrug it off and say, please, I've got my own things that I want to do. I say that as a background because I think it wasn't until I went to 2 years to college and trying to pursue some kind of perhaps field in the medical field, and that was my intention. And it was in the midst of those 2 years about preparing to transfer to Texas A&M University that at the very, very last minute, after already going through the orientation, having my room and etc., 4 days before school starts, I said, I'm not going. And there was for a variety of reasons, but probably the biggest reason was I began to question whether that's what I really wanted to do. And I thought rather than spend another year pursuing something that if it were not to be it, that maybe it's time to step back, get a job, work somewhere and I said I'd work for a couple of years, and then at that point go back to school, wherever that may be. But it was in those 2 years, as a 20-year-old to 22-year-old, that that idea or possibility became probably a little bit more concrete. So I began to discern, if that's really what I wanted to do. It took me about a year probably to kind of realize or question, maybe this is really something that I ought to consider. And I wasn't really happy with it. In fact, I was actually honestly quite angry about it because I felt that I knew what I wanted to do. But this other feeling or possibility was surfacing, and I couldn't put it away. And so finally I gave it some serious thought, prayer, and then at that point made the decision. Now, keep in mind, I also at that time had the experience of my parish. I belonged to a parish that served predominantly Mexican or Mexican Americans until I was a freshman in high school. In that particular church, Blessed Sacrament in Cameron was destroyed by an electrical fire. So at that point, then the bishop made a decision, conscious decision, to put the two parishes, Blessed Sacrament and St. Monica's, to put them together, and they become one parish. It's, celebrating, worshiping at St. Monica's, where I went to Catholic school for 5 years. So I would say it's a little bit of a combination of events, how interesting how God uses events, sometimes tragic, sadness, bringing people together. And then I'd like to think that it was a lot of it was bringing those two communities, primarily a Spanish-speaking, a non-Spanish-speaking community together, and then began to somehow bring the possibility of a vocation out of that. So,
as an aside, when I was in grade school, there was a woman who was discerning to be a nun, and she talked about being angry at giving up what she already had set up.
I lived in the rectory for a year in those 2 years. The first year I lived at home. Second year, when I was really seriously thinking, the pastor, who's still a dear friend of mine, a priest in our diocese, invited me to live at the rectory. And I had my own secular job, but to help them on weekends, whatever ways that I could. And they joke still to this day of how angry I was when I lived in that house. They could hear me, et cetera, et cetera. But it was part of my own internal struggle, trying to let go, to surrender to something that might be a possibility, but something that I guess probably never wanted to look at.
How were you chosen, and how did you feel when you were given the responsibility of starting this new church named after St. Vincent de Paul?
Well, I had been a priest for, I guess, 7 years. I was ordained in 1988, served in various parishes here in the diocese, in the city. And then I went to the diocese. At that time, it was the Diocese of Galveston, Houston. Today it's the Archdiocese. I had gone to work there at a particular parish, St. Mary Magdalene in Humble, up north of Houston. And so I was there for 3 years, and the idea was for me to kind of discern whether I wanted to stay in Houston to continue my priestly ministry. And it was a wonderful experience. Great parish, great people, and some wonderful experiences of building and creating new buildings, etc. And it was in those 2 years, the 2 years that I was there, first 2 years, that in my own prayer began to realize that I needed to return back home to the diocese for which I was ordained for. So when, toward the end of my 3-year stay, if you will, I let Bishop McCarthy, who was the bishop here, and who allowed me to go to Houston, I let him know that I wanted to return. And so he said, well, look, we need to talk about what kind of assignment. And so he invited me to come see him, and at that moment, the appointment, he said, you know, we're looking at building a new parish in Northwest Austin. He told me the reasons why. And he said, I'd like for you to consider it. And I'm thinking, well, I don't know what to consider. Usually you just do what he says for you to do. So I said, that's fine. What do I do? And I always joke, he always said, well, I have no idea how to start a new parish because I've never done one. And, but here are some priests for you to talk to. What does that mean to start and how to start? And in regards to the name, he had an idea of perhaps, for he wanted me to consider, he allowed me to choose the name, but he said, I would like for you to consider one name. And he said, St. Vincent de Paul. And I said, why? And he said, well, the Daughters of Charity here in the city of Austin and in the diocese have given so much of their lives, Seton Hospital, Providence Hospital in Waco, and Ladies of Charity, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, what a wonderful way of kind of thanking them for their presence in their ministry by perhaps naming a parish who is also their founder. So gave it some thought, prayer, told them, sure, and that's how I got started.
So what are the moments or achievements of which you're most proud from your 18-year tenure here as pastor?
I mean, I think everyone's going to immediately go to the fact of the building, and it's a dream for the whole parish, certainly. But I think when I first went, you know, we first had Mass at a cafeteria at Deer Park Middle School on Anderson Mill Road. I don't think, I mean, it was so, in those days, I mean, you're meeting at a cafeteria every Sunday morning, loading up, setting up, tearing down. A building was so far from my idea. But I think probably the thing that I feel so proud about is that I think it has come together as a real family. When you're small, it's easier to know, you know, is Janice here today at Mass? Is she not here today at Mass? And you really get to know each other. And we've started out probably, I'm going to guess, 250 families, maybe 300 families in that first year. And each year you grew. But people really kind of cared for each other. And it was small enough, you knew about people's lives. The challenge and the fear for some people was that they had just left some parishes. They didn't want to be a big parish, and they were afraid that you just become a number. And I don't think that that's necessarily a fair observation, because I've always believed that it depends on how you involve yourself, engage yourself. So I think when I look back over 18 and a half years, I think I still hear to this day people that move into it. Yes, it might be smaller from some of our neighboring parishes, but there's a sense of family, a sense of hospitality, a sense of welcome. And that will be a challenge for it in the future. It is now. But how do you continue to retain that? And then if you follow upon that, then it's the obvious ministries, organizations, ways of involving people. I've always been a big believer in that it's not just about me. The parish is about all of us working together, collaborative ministry. And I'd like to think that that's what I have helped to create here, a parish that will continue that okay, if I leave, there will be a different person leading, but the kind of community that you've created, the empowering that you've done with people, if I've done my work, then that doesn't end.
How do you feel about being asked to take on this new role as Vicar General for the Diocese of Austin?
Certainly, I mean the words humbled, honored, but I think the other word is overwhelmed. I knew the two previous Vicar Generals, pretty good friends, and certainly worked a lot with them in various projects. I can't say that I knew a lot about what they did other than when I was at some unofficial meeting where they were present. But I think it overwhelms me because it's a tremendous responsibility that the bishop is entrusting me to help him and administer the diocese. And so it's moving away from the kind of day-to-day pastoral life of the parish to still doing some pastoral ministry, but a little bit different from a different angle. And let's put it this way, it's one of those kind of jobs that, I still have a boss, and he will give me my quote-unquote marching orders. I hope to carry it out, but hopefully the style that I have or the personality that I have, I can bring that to the work, and I just try to take it day at a time and not trying to worry about, am I competent, do I have all these qualities, and it's easy to begin to go down that road and think, and there's so much of the unknown that I really don't know what all it entails, but I will find out soon.
What do you believe are the skills you developed while at SBDP that will be most important in your new position?
I think my ability to collaborate with people, different heads of all the different diocesan offices, diocesan employees in various ways. I like to think I'm a pretty good listener. I tend to be a person that wants to gather a lot of information, listen, find out from various people what their insights, thoughts, concerns. And it's not about me necessarily making the decision, but taking that information and saying to Bishop Joe Vasquez, here's what I've come up with, here's what I see. And then however he wants to make that decision, but I bring that kind of information. I'd like to think that as I've seen the parish grow here, that we've done a lot of that, and I especially have seen that in the building of this new sanctuary that's a year old, that we did a lot of that, gathering of information. I don't pretend to be the person that knows everything. There's a lot of diocesan offices that I probably don't even know a lot of exactly what they do, but as I get to know them, they get to know me. Hopefully they sense a confidence to come talk to me and whatever their concerns are, and see if we can work that out together.
What are the duties of the parish priest that you expect to miss the most after your transition?
I think it's walking day to day in the life of people. I mean, as an example today, getting a call and saying, my wife, my daughter is in the hospital, they're going to have surgery, or they had surgery, they have an illness, can you come? I won't be getting necessarily those phone calls. And so that's going to be a real void. And I think also the natural Saturday and Sunday schedule. I'm not going to have that kind of schedule. And so you don't follow with these families, so to speak. So that'll probably be the biggest change.
Will you describe in a little more detail what part the Vicar General and Moderator of the Curia plays in the running of the diocese? Just so we can envision it a touch more.
Well, I think the Vicar General, again, that job, as I understand it, can vary upon diocese of how the bishop chooses to use the Vicar General. In a sense, he can give to him whatever duties he wants to give to him in realms of administration. In this case, the bishop has given me pretty much all, if you want to say, kind of administrative, the ability to act on his behalf, I should say. And he is the boss, but on a day-to-day life, in the running of the diocesan offices, I'm, in a sense, between Vicar General, who, in a sense, is someone who works closely with the bishop, not just generally within administration, but also pastoral services. So I become, I think, a very close co-worker to him. So as issues do occur and surface in the diocese, whether it's in Marble Falls or whether it's in Llano or in San Marcos, more than likely, if something's happening in the diocese, I probably will know it. And so in that case, I become his representative in many cases, perhaps interfacing with parishes, different people in the city or the diocese. In realms of Moderator, the Curia is kind of like, if you want to use another word, the government of the church. So we have diocesan offices. I don't know, we have something like, I think I was told, over 100 employees. And so in a sense, I'm the person in charge of all these diocesan offices on a day-to-day basis and the employees. So if things occur in those places, again, I'm the person that ultimately will have to somehow interface with some of those situations.
Do those two positions affect every day? Are they both part of your everyday?
When people talk about the Vicar General, many times it's kind of viewed or as kind of it's a priest role. So you have bishop, Vicar General, you have chancellor, and those three, a vicar of priests in our diocese. So those four kind of positions are pretty important positions if you want to use the hierarchy of the church, working with the bishop and looking at a lot of issues all around the diocese. Maybe there's buying of property, maybe there's selling of property, maybe there's some kind of issue with the hospitals, in the Catholic hospitals, or the university, St. Edward's, or the high schools. And the Vicar General in many can be kind of the spokesman for the local bishop if the bishop is not available, etc. Where the Moderator of the Curia is a little bit more, again, of the administration, that kind of governance of that kind of stuff. And as I was kidding at Mass, it's basically helping to keep the store open, so to speak. Now, I may find that out differently, but
At which parish will you be saying Masses?
I won't be saying Masses at any particular parish, as meaning on a regular basis. The bishop wants me to be free, and that's my word, free of being assigned a particular parish, so that I have the freedom to deal with the diocesan work as it comes in, however it comes in on a weekend or whatever it may be. Now, there may be cases and times, as there were with the past vicar generals, where a priest is sick, a priest is in a crisis, a parish needs some help because of whatever else they have going on. There may be times when I go and assist a parish with taking a mass here and there, but probably not on a regular basis or to a particular parish.
Can the parishioners of St. Vincent de Paul expect to see you around occasionally? And how can they keep in touch with you?
Probably the easiest way is probably through email, and to keep in contact with me. I would say that as far as seeing me here, I don't know that on a regular basis they will see me. If there's an event held here at the parish, certainly that may bring me here. As an example, the Chrism Mass will be right before Easter. I'll be present. If there are ordinations here, I'd be present. So unless there's some kind of event, probably I'm not going to be coming on a regular basis just because of my responsibilities.
What are your hopes, wishes, and prayers for St. Vincent de Paul after you leave?
Well, I would love to see the parish, one, keep growing. Keep growing in numbers, keep growing in the services and the ministries that they provide for the people of God. Continue to be an example of life. A parish that exhibits life and joy and of service. And certainly with its name of St. Vincent de Paul, I would hope that it continues to be a parish that reaches out to the poor and the underprivileged in the community. The buildings, there are things that I think we as a parish would like to continue to see built or added on, or etc. But I think that will come with time, probably sooner than later. But I think I'd just like to see the parish continue to build on what I think the wonderful things they've done this far.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say to those watching?
You know, I would say it's been a good ride. It's been a great experience for me. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would have been asked to begin a parish, much less be here to see it ultimately build its new church. People kind of joke and say, you've been here a long time. And I said, yeah, I have been here a long time. It's been probably 2/3 of my 26 years. So I've invested a lot of my time and sacrifice, but so I'm going to miss it. People keep asking, are you going to miss it? Well, sure, I'm going to miss it. It's been so much a part of my life. But at the same time, like I said earlier in one of the questions, I think if I've done my good work, then my hope is the people that I have in some ways touched, affected in a positive way, taught, that they will continue that same kind of work in various ways, and I think that will happen. So.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for your time, Father Danny. We will miss you and keep you in our prayers.
Please do. Thanks.
Thank you.